So our next session will be on issues in post-award, and our presenter is Rashonda Harris. Rashonda is the Director of Award Management and Post-Award Services at the University of Connecticut. She has over 20 years of experience in pre- and post-award clinical trial negotiation and management, including device studies, regulatory compliance, and audit. She's a national expert in financial research administration and has served as a trainer and educator teaching nationwide. Rashonda is a faculty member teaching in the Johns Hopkins Masters for Research Administration. Rashonda is an NCURA board member and a DRA faculty. She is an NCURA Region 3 2021 Distinguished Service Awardee and a 2020 national recipient of NCURA's Julia Jacobson Distinguished Service Award. Rashonda is a devout mentor and a diversity, equity, and inclusion champion. Welcome, Rashonda.
Thank you so much, Celeste. I'm really excited to be here with everyone, and I hope everyone will enjoy this session. I like to be engaging, and so Celeste will drop a link into the chat. And what I would like each of you to do is to prepare to join the conversation. There will be some polls that will come up as we get to those slides. And if you prepare your information, you'll be able to see those polls and engage with the presentation. So without any further delays, I'm going to get started. So today I'm going to talk about issues in post-award, and I'm going to talk about these items on the agenda. So the issues in post-award have been taken from a real life situation. The names of the innocent have been redacted so that we can share this experience with you. And so we're going to talk about metrics, how to determine which matter. We'll talk about policies and procedures, how to start documenting. Then we'll go into retention and cover training and development, okay? Now, as I get started, again, if you have any questions, Celeste will let me know, share your question, and I'll be answering them in real time. To get started, I'm going to talk about metrics that matter. Metrics are always something that are a bit of something that's really evasive. We always try to get the right ones. We never know if we're getting the right ones. And if we get the right ones, are we capturing the right components from these metrics? And so what I would like to do is jump into our first poll. You should all see, oh, people are already starting to take it. There we go. What metrics are important to you? And so we have policy, procedures, grants, turnaround times, I'm guessing that is, receivables, award setups. And so the more an item is listed, the bigger it will get, the words will get. So there we go, time. Time is of the importance, turnaround time specifically. And what I will do is I will talk a little bit about that, but it's good to see where you guys are, because I want to tell you, you are not alone. A lot of us are in the same situation, trying to figure out, you know, what metrics we should capture first, which are our high level metrics, which are our manager level metrics, and which are employee facing metrics that matter to them. And so what we'll do is I will cover and give you guys some insight into how you can get started with this process. You guys have been great with your feedback. I see time is right in the middle, but you have a lot of good feedback in the number of metrics that are important to you. All right, so I'm gonna move on. So, you know, how to get started, and we need what we need an understanding of. So for us, you know, it depends on where you sit in the org chart, right? In the org chart, are you in post-award where you are a staff member, or are you in leadership? You know, because from the different perspectives, the metrics that we need and that are important to us are different, right? And so I'm looking at the ones you guys put in the chat, and deadlines is definitely a big one, and it's a common one that comes up. But let's talk about which metrics matter to leadership, because they are frontline as well. So we need to make sure we have metrics that they understand. And what they want to see is leadership wants to know just what I just asked, you know, are we capturing the right metrics? Are our metrics accurate? Are we growing? If so, where? And it should be So not show, excuse my error. But we also want to look at volume, and we want to look at errors in training. The things that leaders want to know is how reliable are our metrics, and if we can consistently show these metrics, then they can lead us to know where we can allocate resources for growth. And so when we sit in a leadership view, these are important, but it does not make the leadership, the metrics that staff see, any less important. We're just all sitting and looking from different lenses, okay? So what metrics matter to staff? Staff want to know, what am I supposed to be doing, right? There's so many different things, and sometimes we realize that our other duties as assigned outweighs the duties that we have listed. But we need to know, what's priority, which ones do you want me to focus on, or should I be focusing on? And so that means, how well am I required to do which ones? What do you think of my performance? Because at the end of every fiscal year, we get graded and rated on our performance, and it's contingent on how we get a promotional opportunity, or how we get increases in our salary, our merits. So, we want to know, how will I be rewarded, and how can I improve on my performance? Working in a hybrid situation like many of us, we need to be able to have concrete data that supports each of these areas. And this is not only important, again, from a staff point, but it's important from a leadership point as well. Again, sometimes it's just a different lens. And feel free to jump in, any questions as I'm going through slides. I would like to be able to make sure I answer your questions in real time. So these are some of the things that you guys mentioned about wanting to see. So here we have account setup. When we look at the account setup as a critical post-award metric, what do you think is important with account setup? Timeliness. How quickly can we set up that account? How quickly can we turn it around so that our researcher can begin spending and get to going right to the research? So that's what we need to do from an account setup point when it looks at from a departmental view. But from an internal view, what we need to see is, are we setting it up accurately, right? And I'm going to apologize because my coworker, my little kitten, she's crawling all over and I don't want her to advance my slides. We want to be able to make sure that when we set up an award, we're setting it up accurately, because accuracy is important. Just imagine going and setting up an award and we set it up with the wrong type of sponsor, right? So it's a federal sponsor, but rather than it being NIH, it's NSF. Those have very different reporting requirements. So it's really important to make sure that the setup is done right at the initial pass. So we want to make sure we do that. Award maintenance. Award maintenance is one of those kind of areas of gray, because it includes so many things. Award maintenance includes where, well, we didn't get that set up right, so we now need to circle back to make sure we fix it. Or award maintenance is, we've gotten this award set up accurately, but we've learned along the way that the sponsor wants to modify it a little bit. So that's going to be award maintenance. So I need to maybe change the reporting terms or the invoicing requirements or something of that matter. It also is something that you do throughout the life of the grant. So that means if there is, program income, any type of things that may come along the way that need to happen, that's your maintenance part of your metrics. And it is important because I need to know, how many times do my staff have to touch an individual award? And if I find that my staff are touching the same award over and over and over, I need to understand and triage for why, right? Because that is something that we need to be able to count, because I need to be able to go to the source and say, okay, here is the place where I've noticed that we keep having to go back and make a revision for a number of reasons. Let's look and see what your process is. Maybe we are missing something, or we have an opportunity to realize an efficiency to improve upon your process. And this is where you'll also see where consistency can be determined, or you get transparency if there's a lack of consistency, because what will happen is you will see the same person making the same mistakes because they may be doing it differently, right? Or if you see different mistakes from all over, that also is a sign of inconsistency, because you're seeing the mistakes come from all over. The next one is invoicing. Invoicing is always critical, because we need to make sure, one, we are invoicing within a period and we're meeting the sponsored requirements so that we're in compliance. We also need to make sure that when we're at the setup are we making sure that the invoice terms are agreeable, meaning that we can actually meet these terms? They're not so far-fetched that my staff are going to be stressed out every single time they have to invoice for this award. You know, is the frequency accurate? Are we making sure that there are no deliverables that we're missing? Those are things that are very critical that relate to invoicing. Financial reporting. Someone noted in the chat that how many revised FSRs were submitted. That is so critical. I need to know that if I'm submitting an FSR and I only need to submit it one time, that's great. But if I'm having to revise an FSR numerous times, I need to understand why. Why am I revising this FSR? Was it something that wasn't clear in the contract? Is it something that my staff doesn't understand that needs to be clarified? Or is there an opportunity for us to, meet in the middle and clarify what our expectations are? There are a number of things that can change midway during the life of a grant, and those could relate to, revised submissions. But in most cases, we should only be submitting at one time, okay? Closeout. Closeout is definitely a critical metric. Closeout is often a metric that we don't like to keep because we find that we have a growing pile of closeouts that need to be done, because as quickly as we are setting them up, awards are ending and they need to be closed out. So a lot of institutions find themselves a little bit stressed about managing their closeouts. And so having that transparency of where your closeouts are ending can also help you with your processes. For example, a lot of institutions have an award and then they will have a project. Am I seeing a larger number of closeouts because I'm counting the projects that need to be closed out as well as the award? When in essence, is the award actually closed once the projects are closed, or vice versa? So sometimes it just clarifying, maybe I'm counting the awards and I should just only count the projects, or vice versa. Audits. Audits are really a critical metric because you need to be able to understand what internal controls you have in place for areas that you may be at risk. You need to understand if there's an opportunity for improvement or collaboration, that it can be realized before an external audit happens. And so this audit that I'm referring to right now is an audit preparation. In theory, you want to make sure that you are prepared for audits. You understand what could be questioned or what could be requested, and that you have that documentation available. For example, when we do closeouts should be accompanied by a checklist. A checklist are things that an auditor could possibly ask for, and also things that should be included in that final file for closure, so that when or if it is requested, all of the information is there readily available. Okay. So a solid structure for metrics really communicates where the focus should be. As you heard me say about each of the items that I covered, the important part is understanding what I'm looking for. I want to be able to say, okay, I'm looking at award setups, but I want to make sure I can call out my complex award setups or my critical award setups where they have a little, something unique that needs to be remembered and could fall off the radar. I need to make sure I'm calling those things out. So having a clear focus of what you should be looking at is really important. Then you want to provide the staff with opportunities to be recognized for their accomplishments and goals that they achieve when, what really matters. And what I mean by that is sometimes we think, we're so busy looking at the goals that we don't recognize who's helping us get to those goals, right? And now the people who are helping us get to those goals are the staff. So they, who doesn't like to hear a job well done? Who doesn't like to hear thank you? You're doing a great job. Who doesn't like to receive that feedback in real time to know, okay, so here's where this effort that I gave, even though it was arduous and I was like, oh my gosh, it was too much, my leadership or my organization appreciated it and recognized me for it. But then we also want to emphasize on the priorities and progress to our stakeholders. Transparency will build relationships. When you have communication between all of your stakeholders or collaborators, you will see good relationships, because nobody wants to be sitting thinking, I wonder if my invoice went out. I wonder if my FSR was filed. I wonder if I've been getting the payments in for the work that I've been doing on this award. Communicating simple information on prioritized tasks is really, really important, but just being open and communication and transparent is key as well. Communicate reality. Your solid structure of metrics should communicate reality. And what that means is that this is accurate. This is real time. If you go back and, I'm not here, you go back into the system, you pull out the information, you're going to get the same data. You're going to be able to see that this data is solid, it has integrity, and it can be relied on. So it shouldn't be something to say, well, I pulled the data, but employee fill in the blank isn't here today, so they couldn't do the pivot table and this and that so that it can look pretty for you. When you create your metrics, you want to rely on the systems that you utilize. You want to rely on those systems so that you can pull data as is in real time so that you can have consistency in what you're pulling and what everybody is seeing. Next, it also supports the goals of the organization. That means that when I'm looking to pull my metrics, I go, my boss says, hey, I need metrics. I'm going to be in a meeting at noon. It's 9 a.m. I can pull those metrics, give it to him. He can go to executive leadership and say, hey, we're really growing in research. We've had X number of dollars in new proposals submitted and X number of dollars in this many awards funded. Those are how our metrics can roll up to support the goals of the organization and also support us in lobbying and rallying for additional resources, because at the end of the day, we are often asked to say, well, why do you need more people? And you can't just say, well, because, I feel like my staff should, get some more support. You need to have metrics to support your request and be able to direct the traffic to show here is where my need is and why. And again, as I'm going through, please feel free to jump in with any questions. I would love you to join the conversation to answer your questions in real time. So as we move on, how do we get there? Well, you will hear me say this a lot. If you ever, say, pick up the phone and call me, Rashonda, I'm really trying to figure out how I can get my metrics. The first thing I'm going to tell you or ask, are you leveraging your technology? Sometimes we forget that we have so much at our fingertips and we're so used to customizing that we don't take advantage of what the system actually offers. For anybody who finds themselves in the middle of an ERP implementation, the best advice I could give you is to implement a vanilla system, turn everything on, and see how it works. You will thank me later, because every time we customize a system, we turn off so many features that we go down the road 5 years later and realize, I need that feature now. Well, guess what? Now it's a customization and we have to pay more to turn it back on when it was initially offered in the standard package. So leveraging technology, how can we utilize what we are currently having available to us to get our metrics, capture it. You heard me say before that we want to be able to pull data from the system in real time. That means your data has integrity. The more data has to be touched after it is out of the system or manipulated, the less integrity your data has. So leverage your technology, utilize it for what it is. And then you want to focus on the best return on your investment. If I'm looking and I'm pulling in my data and my staff are doing, I'm seeing that we are spending an increased amount of time because, all of those awards that we submitted have been getting funded. Well, guess what? I can see that the Department of Biochemistry is growing. I can see that the Department of Psychology is growing. And guess what? We need to make sure that we are getting resources that can support that growth and maintain the level of customer service that we want. Next, we want to look at how we can integrate your metrics into performance management and measurement. So here is where we have the opportunity to drive our metrics by using them in conjunction with performance management. If my staff know that I am going to rate your performance on how well you turn around your work, well, guess what? Now that is a priority because they know that they're being measured on it. And if there's transparency in that measurement and they can see themselves, they first have the first chance to say, oh, here's an opportunity for me to improve. I see where each month I'm lagging behind on my invoice completion in this area. So here is where I can spend more time. It will help them to be able to adjust their work process for the month or however they do it. But it'll also give them a fair measurement or a point of expectation of where they are when it comes to performance management. And that's where you create transparency in the process. At one of my prior institutions, I created a quarterly evaluation process where my staff were allowed to rate their managers. So not only did they get feedback from their managers, they got to give feedback up. Sometimes we forget that we're so busy giving feedback down as leaders that we forget feedback up is good as well. We have to be equally open and receptive to things that are changing. And some of the things that I added in that feedback that they could give, or that, they were welcome to give, and I wanted to know was, when my supervisor does this, this is really good for me. Or I don't like it when my supervisor does that, because we all have our little things that ebb and flow for us where, this could be really not something I love, or this is something that is really, really helpful to me. And if you could continue doing it, that would be great. Sometimes that information isn't always obvious to the supervisor. And if it's communicated in a form where you're meeting in the middle, it can be better received and utilized, and create that transparency on both sides for performance measurement. So the aha moment is you'll have quality output. You will definitely see an improvement in staff performance, and it will boost the morale of the office. When performance is tied to how you manage your workload, the morale is a easy residual effect because it's tied all together, and people can see the immediate improvement or area where they can grow. And so it does have a good impact on morale for everyone, especially with the transparency in the process. But you also get reliable metrics that can measure and aid your growth and resource allocation. And, for many of us who are working in the office or who are working hybrid, part in the office, part at home, or all fully remote, growth and resource allocation is definitely needed. We now, in some cases do not have the opportunity to say, oh man, there's no more seats for us. We sit at home, right? If you're remote. So I don't get to see that, oh, we're running out of places for people to sit, that we're growing. Sometimes you need to have other reinforcements that show your growth and where it's coming from, and or where you need to have it. Questions or concerns about that? All right, moving right along. So
Rashonda?
Yes.
Sometimes folks would see metrics as being punitive. What do you say to staff to help them see that this is a positive measure?
Well, I will tell you this. The metrics that can be seen as positive really are when they related to workload allocation. And so if, I'm looking and you're saying, well, I had 400 awards in my portfolio, and employee B has 200 awards in their portfolio. Well, of course, employee B will be able to get their work done faster in theory, because just looking at the volume, they have less. But when you look at the metrics of it, well, I can see now employee B does have less in volume, but they have much more complex work, right? So those are where opportunities where you can see where it can be a benefit to say, okay, don't just look at the volume, peel back the layers to see that, yes, I do have less, but I have much more complex work, which takes much more time and it takes more skill. And this is why, I'm great at my job, or, I might need more help at my job because I'm being overwhelmed. I think that it is also the management style of the person who's viewing those metrics. Some people don't quite understand certain areas. I can speak from experience, having grown up in research. Sometimes we get leaders who do not understand and have not gone through the ranks, so they can't appreciate and understand that there may be layers that should be peeled back to understand that it's more than just a number. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you. And Linda has a comment to that on workload. Linda, do you want to unmute?
Please.
Is she able to unmute? Let's see.
You can't. Okay. If you can type it in the chat.
Okay, now I can. Thank you. So I'm in the process of transitioning my role and taking on a different portfolio. And I'm in a weird spot where I help with bench research, translational, as well as clinical trials. And so with my workload, I support the physicians at our hospital. And it's been very interesting because even though it's like 25 PIs, it might be 5 grants for one for another, one for another. But I meet with managers, do the work. Then I report to all the 25 PIs after I meet with the managers to get the information. And then so it's almost like I have 2 groups I'm reporting to because we learned that the PIs weren't getting what they needed meeting with the clinical managers because they're talking clinical, not administration. And so I think there was perhaps a perception that because there wasn't a lot of grant activity, that there wasn't a lot of work associated with it. And now the hours that I'm putting in to help train someone to understand all these CTAs and the different patient subjects, human subjects and the patient and invoicing and things like that, they're like, wow, you're faster than anyone else at the organization and this stuff, because they're seeing that it's not just, oh, just one here, one there. It's so much more. And I think until you've lived it, breathed it, or really dive into those details, you may miss the matrix because it just looks like numbers, and numbers don't account for different types of support because of the nature of the work we do.
Indeed, and especially when it comes to complexity is hidden in those numbers, and so you can't just base it off of the volume. You have to unpack it and look to see what's happening. I can tell you I had a situation where we were responsible for closing out clinical trials, and it was like, oh, they're clinical trials, it should be easy. No, there's so much that you have to resolve and ensure is complete. So I completely understand. And I will tell you that that is a reason why when people like you leave, who are just, so skilled and undervalued most times, that they have to refill your spot with multiple staff members just because they didn't account for the amount of work you were doing. So I completely understand. And I appreciate your feedback.
Thank you so much. And thank you for letting me comment.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. Please feel free to join the conversation. Please continue to utilize the chat and chime in when you feel. All right, so
Florence had a comment. She said it's so important to not just look at the numbers. So I think it just echoes.
Florence. Yeah, you echoes everything we've been saying. I couldn't agree more. Unpack those numbers. All right, so next I'm going to talk about policies and procedures. This is an area and a pain point of many of us. And so, I'm going to give you guys some tricks of the trade, and I'm going to help you hit the easy button. But before we do that, I have a poll for you guys. What is your biggest challenge with policies and procedures? Okay. I think D might be a close second to A. All right, C, okay. We're getting some votes for C, consolidation. I'm getting a lot of votes for C and D. All right. Well, I definitely can see all of the above being a favorite as well, because all of the above is my situation right now. So, you guys, again, I can't stress it enough. You're not alone. This is a great opportunity so that I'm going to share some of the strategies that can help to make this a little bit more livable for you. So, when you get ready to do your policies and procedures, first, you need to understand your needs. The worst thing you could do is to come in and say, oh my gosh, we have 50 policies and procedures that need to be updated, and we're just going to go in and start updating them. What are we updating them based on? We need to understand that. We also need to take a step back and review our current policies and procedures that we have, because over the years, what I've learned is that many of the things that people call policies and procedures are all 4 of these items here. It's a job aid, it's a SOP, it's a policy, and it's training all in one. That should be separated out. There are levels to looking at what you have as in terms of what you're documenting. Am I documenting this so that I can say this is how we process it? If so, that's a standard operating procedure. But if I'm documenting this to say this is how we do the process, and I'm going through each of the steps, well, guess what? I've crossed into a job aid. And if I'm just talking about the reason why we have to do this, that's more line of a policy. And so we need to be able to differentiate and separate out what we want and what we're utilizing the update for. And sometimes it is a really good opportunity to break it apart and to break it into all of these sections so that you'll have living documents that can evolve as you go forward. And the key to this is that we can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone. And so I love, love, love to do this practice. And if any of my staff members on the line, this is what you're in store for, so be prepared. But we will first identify what we are documenting. What is the policy? Is it still valid? Sometimes the names change, right? It's not always the exact same thing where it's just an update. We may need to realize that, we now need to change the name of this because it's no longer applicable and it's outdated, and we need to start a whole new policy or procedure over. So we need to identify the what, and then we need to determine the how. Determining the how is, how do we attack what we need to get done? How many policies and procedures do we have? How many, what's our timeline? Have we set something that's fair for ourselves? And then your key in all of this is utilizing your subject matter experts. I cannot stress this enough. Understand that it takes a village is not to be taken lightly. So many times I hear, people, oh, I'm the director and yeah, I've been updating policies for 2 years now since I got there. Why? Why are you updating these yourself? When you have people who are subject matter experts at some of those policies and procedures that need to be developed or updated. You know what I like to do? All are welcome. Come on and join the conversation. I'm going to use every single person on my staff to develop a policy or procedure or training or SOP. In fact, every one that they do is going to have all 4. And so what that means is I'm going to use employee A to look at my cost transfers. I'm going to use employee B to do effort reporting. I'm going to use employee C to look at rebudgets. These are examples, but those employees that I'm referencing or mentioning, those are my subject matter experts. Those are the people who do the jobs every day, right? And those are the people who have the most knowledge and have the ins and outs of a process that we often don't know, especially if we're looking from a higher level down. Now, what happens when the village or the subject matter experts have left the institution? Well, now you have, you have an opportunity to still utilize the staff, but understand that it's going to take a little bit more collaboration, a little bit more fine tuning of those documents, but you can still utilize every single person. Everybody has value. When you hire people, you hire them because 1, they have skills, and 2, they have a background sometimes, or if they're just brand new, guess what? They have the potential. We have some really intelligent people that work in this field. Utilize them. Utilize them to help get everything documented. And as you go through, then you don't have to make as many starting from the bottom to work your way up through a policy development or a standard operating procedure, a job aid, or training or policy. You get that all in one. And guess what? That person that helped you, whether they are subject matter expert or just your staff member, they feel valued as well, because their name lives on that document. That's how you get everybody involved. That is the quickest way to help have your policies done in a much faster way, but also accurate as well. And Oliver, absolutely, cross-training is important, and it should be done before they leave. Absolutely. One of the things that I often do as a leader, we have people who work in our organization who want to be promoted right away, right? Those are your rising stars in most cases. Then you have some people who have, who are at the organization and they've been there for some time. And guess what? Those are likely your subject matter experts. They're your anchors because they've been there so long. Sometimes they don't, I don't want to move up. I'm very comfortable where I am. So please allow me to continue to be comfortable where I am. And you know what? I respect that. And I'm going to utilize and leverage their skill set to start documenting. The first thing I like to do is say, hey, you've been here, X number of times. Tell me what you like to do the most. And whatever it is, hey, do you mind documenting that? Can you create a document where you just dump all of that information into, and we'll get somebody else to sort it out. At least you start to get it documented so you have that information. A lot of times we don't respect our SMEs and we forget that they're there. And when you don't feel respected or seen, you often leave. And so I just want to, put that out there into the universe. And so if you think about it and you might have some SMEs, go back to your office and thank them and get them to, join the conversation. Everybody can add value in different ways. I want to address a question that was listed here. Kristen mentioned that once you have the SOP drafted by the SME, then have someone who doesn't do that job regularly and see if they can do the job based on the SOP and what questions came up in the process. You can use the feedback to update the SOP even more and get someone cross-trained in the process. That's exactly it. Spot on, Kristen. It is so important to have somebody who's completely not connected to do it. One of the things I did before is everybody, after we did it, we had somebody else, like you said, look at it, switch. Oh, I don't know that one. It's good that you don't know it. So you will be completely unbiased in it. You won't think, oh goodness, I know a shortcut, so I'm going to skip these set of instructions. No, you're going to see exactly how well it works, and you comment your feedback, and then you give it back to the original person who created it. That's going to give you the best feedback, and you're going to have some really good sound standard operating procedures and such. So just an idea of ways to think about, how you can get this done. It is something that you'll thank me later when you actually do it, because you'll be like, oh my gosh, I got 20 SOPs that I now have job aids for, I have policies, and I have trainings, because you've, taken that approach. And again, it takes a village. All right, any other feedback? You guys have been great with the feedback. Keep it coming. All right, so employee retention. This is one of my favorite subjects because we live in I'm going to say air quotes, post-pandemic era, right? Because the pandemic is done, right? Okay. So we've been finding some challenges with employee retention, especially amongst the continuing pandemic that's been going on. So, of course, I have a poll, and I would like you guys to tell me, what is your biggest retention challenge? And feel free to use the chat if you cannot use yes, not remote. Yes, indeed. Other institutions pay more. Remote work. Yep, salaries. Hiring, not being able to work remote, overload, lack of technology improvements. Yes, these are great. Better pay available outside of university, indeed. Indeed, great cross training, get skilled, and then, yeah, then get taken away. Indeed, not flexible, not being valued as an employee. That's a good one, Letitia. No budget or increased job title. Workload. Okay, you guys are fantastic. This is going to give us a lot of good discussion. All right, well, good. You guys just keep them coming. I'm seeing a theme, not being remote, salary, and workload, and those are all important. Now, what I want to talk about is, have you heard of Fringe? Fringe it's what you can't see, but it's also a great benefit. Right now, what we're seeing is people are moving around, and they're moving around for fringe. And what that means is that sometimes it is not necessarily the job title. It's not necessarily the salary. Sometimes it's flexibility. Flexibility is very big right now. A lot of people who are forced to go into the office, I have a flexible option of staying home. Well, you know what? I'll take a lateral move just to stay home, or maybe I'm even getting a bonus because I'm able to work remote and I'm going to get more money. But all of the things that you guys have said are so important and are definitely the reasons why we're seeing so much of what we're calling the Great Resignation or migration, because people are having more options that are challenging leaders to think and dig deeper to say, you know, how can we retain? How can we do this? The first part is, you know, we've had instances, and I can speak for myself. I worked at a place where I swear we had a survey on the work, you know, climate every 6 months that was completely ignored. What is the benefit of constantly surveying if you're not going to take the feedback that you're getting and do something with it? What's going to happen is people are just no longer going to take the survey because they feel that you're wasting their time, because the survey took me 10 minutes to take and I haven't seen any of my feedback or any feedback from anybody that I know gave feedback implemented. But if you do it the right way, surveys can be very, very impactful. You know, for all of the leaders who are on this call right now, I hope you're taking notes, because here is your first ground level view of exactly why people may be thinking about leaving your organization. You know, understanding workload. Are we being transparent? Are we making sure that it's manageable, or that it is equity in the workload that we're assigning to people? Jessica mentioned that we got 5 applicants over 6 weeks for our last opening. Jessica, are you are working in the office or remote? If you could update that, that would be good. Really seeing tons of remote jobs on LinkedIn, and the jobs are just not on LinkedIn. They are also on the listservs. Whichever listservs you are on, they have, there are tons of jobs that are coming out daily. So you're a hybrid, 3 days in the office, 2 days remote after 6 months in the office. So that's where you're going to see a lot of employers are going to have to make a hard decision or find that they have no staff. And, you know, I would err on the side of caution, meaning I would take a look at my institution and my organization and see how flexible we can be. A lot of times what we're seeing, we're not seeing people who are in the office because they truly need to be. There are people who go into the office and still sit at their desk in their office with the door closed all day. What is the difference in that if they just stayed home? There's no difference. The only difference is the preference of their leader who wanted them in the office. So that's the hard look that leaders need to take and understand that my role as a leader is to recognize the needs of my staff. Do I need everybody here? No. Would I like them here? Probably. But there are ways that I can compromise. I can say, oh, okay, let's meet in the middle. I can make sure that we do, for example, with my staff, you know, we are all working remote. However, you know, I've asked, please update your picture. I want to be able to see your faces. I don't get to see you in person. At least let me see a beautiful picture of you. You know, some people had avatars and some people had, you know, nature pictures or whatever. But being able to see a face, that's a way that I can live with that, right? Because that's going to give me an opportunity to still feel like I can get to see this person. I want to address some of the note. So the feedback. Lewis mentioned that hybrid work can be grueling. It can very much be grueling. And I will tell you, and you know, this is not a secret society. All we ask is trust of leaderships, but I will tell you that that's really a preference of your leader. There is an easy case to be made for working 100% remote. A lot of us fail to realize that we worked almost 2 years 100% remote and did well. We were even complimented on how well we did. And then all of a sudden we needed to be back in the office. That didn't quite match up. If we did so well out of the office, tell me, why do we need to be in the office? And again, yes, Maya, you are absolutely right. Hybrid works for some and not for others. That is why, as leaders, we need to be flexible. We need to appreciate the choices that our staff make. If somebody wants to be, you know, in the office and somebody doesn't, we need to be able to have a balance. Now, I will tell you, sometimes there's an all or nothing. You know, there's a very slippery slope as a leader. If I have a few people going into the office and some people staying at home, what happens is you begin to develop two separate cultures of the people who are in the office building a bond and the people who are working online. And now it's like, well, they're the office workers and we're the remote workers, and we don't quite link up. We're not, you know, in sync. We're not bonding as a team because we have separation. So that is something that needs to be considered and also managed very well. I want to talk about some of the feedback because I'm getting a lot of good feedback here. What else? I'm going to go back up. Hybrid can be grueling. Leadership needs to be more creative and forward thinking and trust the employees to do their work. Absolutely. I always tell my staff, Letitia, I say this, if I have to be a micromanager, we're both going to be unhappy because I hate it. And so it's not going to be fun for you either. But we are all adults. Let's trust people to do their work. If there's no reason to distrust, why should we? We should trust people and then hold them accountable and make adjustments if we need to. Also, Lewis said better to be 100% in or 100% out. The hokey pokey was right. I agree. Great feedback. Next one, Joni said that we have an employee engagement survey coming out in February. That's going to be great. I really hope that you all take the feedback and really take it through a lens of seriousness and commitment to what your staff are telling you. Be thankful that even if they tell you, because a lot of times people just leave rather than tell you at all. So that feedback is going to be really important. So I hope you are able to utilize it. I also said the best ideas happen in the coffee room. They do. And I'm going to tell you, my coffee room is right here. My virtual coffee room is awesome. And so it's all up here. It's a point of, it's a mindset shift. Do we think that this is, I need to be in the office to have, my coffee, or can we have virtual coffee? I will tell you, I have virtual coffee and it's pretty good. Next, if they aren't listening to the feedback, it also feels like management doesn't care. It starts to feel like they truly believe that they can fill seats with just anyone and it won't make a difference in performance. I so agree, Sheila. I will tell you that I am not a seat filler. I want to make sure that my employees are happy. I tell my staff, and I have a new staff and they're getting to know me, but one of the things I tell them is that their needs come first. I'm a servant leader. If they're happy, the residual that I will get are everything else. The work will show it and they will, go the extra mile for me because I'm making sure that they're happy. Again, Maya, we talked about that one. Higher work is good for some, not for others. And that saying of one bad apple is very true. Sheila also mentioned that that's how the university was too. We were complimented and then we were told we could go back to work 1 day a week. Yeah. Linda, that happened to us. We can do it in pandemic, but we need to prove that we can do it when the final schedule. Yeah, and pivoting is definitely real. I think that, institutions didn't realize just how much they were, being very flaky, and going back and forth. Well, were you, one of the questions or one of the sayings that we have in research administration when we have to do a cost transfer or auditor's joke is that, were you lying then or were you lying now? Because was I not doing a good job there or am I not doing a good job now? And that's why you want me in the office. And then I was able to work more effectively and efficiently at home, did not have any constant interruptions. And that's true, Letitia, for some, but then you have parents, right? And some parents need, to have a break. And if, you have a kid there, it could be a little bit more off balance, but that's why I tell people, I'm okay as long as you're getting your work done, but that's where you're being flexible and you're also leveraging and moving forward with things that make sense to your staff. For me, I'm not a person who needs to know your every move. If your work is good, I'm good. We're hearing of some offices that were hiring for fully remote. However, the leaders are deciding those employees now need to come in a few days. Well, what will happen is you'll continue to see, what is it called? I can't think of it, where you go around the seats until till there are no more seats left. I can't think of the name of it, but somebody will put it in the chat for me. But yes, all of this feedback is great. And, we're getting a theme of, of what's happening. My staff are more in contact being remote than in the office. Absolutely. I find that engaging is higher. And a lot of, employers won't tell you this, but actually productivity in a lot of places went up if you had good processes in place. If you didn't, you probably saw a setback. We allow flexible schedule, flexible start times, and it helped with a lot of retention in pandemic. Absolutely, that is so true. I'm going to go ahead, and we got a lot of good questions. It's been a lot of good. You guys have been great with the feedback, a lot of good information. But I want to, yes, musical chairs. Thank you. Could not think of it. Fun game in kindergarten, not so much as an adult, because when we hit the floor, it's not fun. But The next part I want to talk about is more of the fringe, because sometimes people stay at places not just because of the pay, not just because of the title, not just because, oh, I could work from home. There's other things like development. Development is a big thing. Some people want to be developed, some people don't want to be developed. We have, the opportunity to be flexible and to kind of find a happy medium in the middle. That's where you want to be. So I'm going to read this on. I come in 2 days a week. One person. Yeah, you have to set some real strong foundations of what is expected. Setting clear expectations when you have remote work is going to be key to being successful. But I want to move forward into development and also wrap things up for you, is that in development, be flexible, right? Like today, we're all here. A lot of us are working while we're enjoying this professional development opportunity. Be creative. I will tell you that if you know me, you will probably see me, especially, throughout, you'll see me all over the place, because I'm always willing to help out a fellow colleague and coming in to speak to their staff. Why? Because, hey, you know what, Celeste, I need you to come speak to my staff too. That's how you get creative, so that you can bring opportunities to your staff, because everybody wants to feel like they're still being engaged. Nobody wants to just sit, I work, I log on, I log off. There needs to be that same engagement that we had in the office outside it. But the biggest thing that I can tell you about retaining your employees is be authentic. As an authentic leader, I will tell you that people appreciate knowing I have a baseline. I understand where I stand with you. I understand where my organization, where we are, and I can trust what you're saying. People will follow you all around the world if they have that with you. Just knowing you're authentic and who you are and what you're saying and being honest. I had a boss who said, oh yeah, you're going to be promoted, you can be promoted, you can be promoted. Oh, but this happened, and I had to mow, I had to cut my trim my cat's hair last week, so I didn't get to go to my boss to talk about this, and I got to go mow my lawn, and yep, I got to go to the gym, and I'm going to go, all of these excuses. But instead of just saying no or yes, be transparent, be honest, but most important, be flexible. If you want to retain your employees, be flexible. Before the pandemic happened, I had an employee who moved around about 4 times. He was a great employee. Every time this employee needed to move somewhere else, he asked, hey, can I still keep my job? You sure can. You know who was his best advocate? Me. I lobbied to make sure that that person could get everything they needed and stay, because that person was an asset to our organization. And much like what you guys have said, people leave if they don't feel valued. I try to end my meetings with my staff by just thanking them for all the work that they do. I am here because they do the work. I am only as good as they are. So if they're not happy, guess what? I'm not happy. And I'm going to make sure that leadership sees that, Robin, you sure can. I'm going to have some openings. But I want to make sure that it's not always about the work. We have to remember the human capital component of what we do every day. We want to retain people, but we don't look at them as people. We look at them as seat fillers. And guess what? Seat fillers come and go. But people, when they have names and they have faces and you respect them and you understand them and they feel seen and they feel heard, well, guess what? Rashonda, I have an opportunity. It's a little bit more money. I'm thinking about leaving. Is there anything else? Like what are my options here? Well, how much more money is it? And what is the reason that you were attracted to this opportunity? Find that out. Be flexible. Meet in the middle to say, you know what, we can't quite give you that much, but I can assure you that we can do this for you. And, you're such a critical part of this team. I would really, be remiss if I didn't at least try to, tell you how much I appreciate you and ask you to stay. Sometimes people just want that, it's that need to belong, right? As Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we want to belong. We want to feel seen and heard. And if you can do that with your staff, then you will find that you will be able to retain them, because people will stay and work for people they like. People don't leave jobs, they leave bosses. All right. And so friendly reminder, couple things that I think are really important to say is, I appreciate you guys, is that remote work is not going away. There are about, there's a recent survey I read, and it said about 73% of employees were planning to leave their current job just to consider working remote jobs. I've heard people who are leaving and going to different employers because, you know what, I can go and move to Mexico and work for the University of fill in the blank because they're remote, and I can still get my job done and be appreciated by my employer. And guess what? Even though I'm in a different time zone, because a University of fill in the blank is in California, my employer tells me, as long as you get the job done, right? That's the flexibility. So don't forget to be flexible. Remember that, you know, having that human side of being authentic will get you so much more in terms of, you know, being able to retain your employees. And so I thank you all for joining my my presentation today. I like to end with a quote. I'm always DEI focused with the lens. And so it says, inspiring, motivating, and helping other people achieve things they never thought were possible is setting a good example. Basically, that's what leadership means to me. And so I thank you all so much for joining my session today. I appreciate your feedback. Please find me on LinkedIn, or my email address is right up here. Feel free to email me. I'd love to help. I'm always happy to, you know, pitch in where I can. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Rashonda, and thank you everyone for participating in this session.